been weird. It's been a lot of drama. I think I understand the frustration dealing with the Bay Area traffic, so I think that's where he's at. We learned this morning that the Raiders had indeed fined him for missing a practice and a walkthrough. Now, the practice we knew about a couple of missed practices, but this practice in particular was the one he left in Napa during training camp, the one that caused Mike Mayock to come out to the media and say, hey, like, all this stuff is done. We've been behind Antonio, but everything is settled now. He needs to be at practice. He's got to be all in or all out. A lot of people remember that quote, that speech from Mike Mayock. This is the day in question. He was fined for missing that practice. And listen, that's something that's been reported on. We know about it. But the second one was something that we didn't really know about. It was in Winnipeg. Antonio Brown made the trip that a lot of starters didn't make. He went with the team to Winnipeg, but then he skipped the walkthrough. So that we didn't really know about. That's kind of new news. The Raiders sent him a letter informing him they're going to collect the fine. That's not a huge deal. The big things that come out of this are, one, that the Raiders are enforcing this because teams do this all the time, very rarely actually collect the money, and it looks like the Raiders are going to try to collect that money from Antonio. Actually, they will collect that money from Antonio Brown. And then the other part of this is that Antonio Brown decided that he needed to put it on Instagram this morning, so he posted a story and basically put the letter from Mayock up there and said, even my own team's against me. Now it's time to make the world pay. So, he's turning it into a positive, like going forward, he's going to make everybody pay for coming after him or whatever. But I think we learned those couple of new things. And the Winnipeg one is troubling to me because why make the trip if you're going to skip the walkthrough? And what on earth are you doing in Winnipeg that you can't go to the walkthrough? Because I'm telling you, there is nothing to do there. That place sucks.
Well, I'm curious, and I don't even know what they can do, but I was just asking Steve off the air, at what point did Mayock and Gruden go, Antonio, come on, man. We've been behind you with the helmet thing. What is going on here? He continues to kind of just be a thorn in the side, and it's not necessarily anything massive, but, can we take a week off from something coming from you?
Yeah, well, I think that a couple of things on that. I mean, I think they've decided how they're going to handle Antonio Brown, and it's the oldest trick in the book of parents with troubled children. They're just playing good cop, bad cop. Gruden is the good cop. He's going to support Antonio Brown no matter what, and every time there's questions about distractions or what Antonio Brown's doing, Gruden is going to race to his defense and say, he's the greatest player in the league. We love him. All we care about is what he does on the field. We're behind him 100%. And Mayock's going to be the one that goes to the media and says we need him here and sends him a letter saying he's going to be fined and plays the tough guy, not only to Antonio behind the scenes but in the media. I mean, they've decided that that's their roles, and that's how they're going to handle it going forward. To what extent is there a limit on that? I don't know. I don't know that there is with Gruden because what choice do they have? I mean, they've handed over so much control of their team and their offense and then the power dynamic to Antonio Brown and said, hey, listen, this is our guy. We just need him on the field on Sunday. So at some point, he's going to interesting. I don't think that Derek Carr thinks the devil's a lie. He used to really live his life based on the devil is bad. I don't think he thinks it's a lie. So is there a problem there? I'm figure it out. I have no idea. I don't know if it's a run-on sentence because there's no punctuation there. I don't know where he's going with it, and I don't really know what it means, frankly.
We've also got some news as we go behind the patch with Adam Hill on the road in California. We got news on AB and his helmet. He's got a new helmet, and he's also got a video out explaining why he's got a new helmet.
Did you watch the video?
I haven't had a chance to yet, no.
It's 40 seconds long. It's fantastic. It's just Antonio Brown announcing his helmet decision and then talking about how well he can see when he comes out of breaks, and that he had to get a humble brag in. I think John will appreciate this if you haven't watched it yet. He said, when you're running 20 or 21 miles per hour down the field and you turn around, you've got to be able to see the ball really well coming out of that break. Why did he have to throw in his speed? That's ridiculous. I loved it, though. It's a great video.
I have to watch this, but I'm down with the humble brag. You always have to get in as much as you can, especially when a guy like Antonio Brown usually doesn't get enough credit.
What's your top speed? You have 20, 21 miles per hour out there?
I think I can touch about 17.5.
Okay.
Okay. Wow.
Please stop.
That's pretty high.
Please stop.
That's momentum downhill, though. Are we talking like flats? Like just
Yes.
flat land? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
By the way, I have not between San Francisco or Oakland and Sacramento, I have not gotten up to 17 miles per hour in the car yet.
There you go. Adam Hill trying to make it over to the Aviators game in the AAA playoffs. All right, depth chart was released yesterday for the Raiders. What's going on at the guard positions?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Jordan Devy, who they said they were looking at as potentially being a starter, it looks like he's on the verge of kind of winning that job. Of course, they thought they had their starting offensive guards with Incognito and Gabe Jackson. They got an injury to Jackson, who seems to be recovering pretty well. And then Incognito, of course, has the 2-game suspension. He's not even allowed in the facility. So, they've seen some good things from Jonathan Cooper. Devy is a guy that, they seem to like there as well. And they're kind of playing it out this week and being coy about exactly what it means. The depth chart, it means something because they put it out, but they're very much they very much like to go after you for citing the depth chart as meaning anything. But then all of a sudden you get to Sunday or Monday in this case, and they kind of line up the way that they said they were going to line up. So take it for what it's worth. It's an unofficial depth chart, but to me, it seems like Devy has kind of separated himself a little bit, and they're liking what he's doing. I will say that there's a period that you're not really supposed to be watching. They're shuffling you off of the field, and the depth chart that was out there looks kind of similar to how they were lining up with the one. So take that for what it's worth.
All right. Adam Hill getting us updated on the Raiders here on this Wednesday as we go behind the patch. We never got to talk about the signing, was it last week or the week before, but the guy is certainly on the 2 deep, pretty solid player. But tell us the impression so far of Corey Liuget, who, was a first-round pick way back when. It's funny I say that, 2011, but was a solid player for the Chargers. What do they expect from him?
I think to be a veteran leader, I mean, he's a guy that certainly can play in the league. He was kind of sitting back, waiting for the right opportunity for what came along. And then, from what we understand, there were several teams that made offers late in training camp, and the Raiders are the one he picked, I think, because he saw some potential for playing time and, for whatever reason, wanted to be a part of this team. And I think he's going to be an impactful player. He's a guy, like we said, he's been around. He's made a ton of starts in the league. And every time that Gruden's asked a question about Liuget and Mayock the same way, the first thing they say is he's played a ton of games. He's been around. He knows the league. And another thing they really point out is how well he knows the division. I mean, he's a guy who's played in the AFC West for a long time, kind of knows the teams, understands who the opponents are. And I think that's a factor for a team like the Raiders, who have a lot of guys who are not only new to the team, but just new to the league in general. I mean, between the roster and the practice squad, they've got 18 rookies. They've got 11 guys that are rookies on the regular roster right now. And then they've got a bunch of guys, 17 starters that didn't start opening day last year that are here now. So a lot of guys that are unfamiliar, with the team, with the division, with just playing around the league. And I think he's a guy that brings a lot. He's certainly, a factor, a force in the interior of the defense. And that's something that they kind of need. They had a lot of bodies, but nobody that was really, standing out necessarily. So I think while they wanted to go young and while they accomplished that with their final roster, they definitely wanted to have a couple guys that could be, veteran leaders and be presences around the locker room that have been there before, and he brings that dimension to them.